Before we dive into today's show, our goal is to beat the #1 most like Raiders report video. That's 1,482. I think we can blow them out of the water on today's show. So please and thank you, like today's video. ESPN is going through their position rankings. They rank the top 10 at each position group based on voting from NFL coaches, executives, personnel men, scouts, etc. And what was surprising to me, and I think is a great update for the Cowboys, DeMarvion Overshown, in 13 games played last year, cracked the top 10 of that linebacker ranking. We'll break that down and what it means for the Cowboys. First, some voting notes that I found pretty interesting. Just 3 players were on 70% of the ballots. That's it. Normally, it's a much, much higher figure among position groups. 32 different players got at least one vote. So, on average, one player from each NFL team got a vote. And all that indicates a massive lack of consensus, especially beyond the first one, maybe 2 linebackers. Here's what one AFC exec said about the group as a whole. It's not an elite group. And a lot of good players are aging, and up-and-comers are not special, in my opinion. Most of them can be lumped together. Let's break down the top 10 list. The free square was Fred Warner. No one had him below number 2. I kind of thought he should be unanimous number 1. So be it. Roquan Smith checks in at the number 2 spot. Zack Baun is number 3. And by the way, for a lot of these players, the lowest ranking was unranked. In fact, that was the case for everyone outside of Fred Warner and Roquan Smith. Nick Bolton is number 4. Frankie Luvu is number 5 with the Commanders. Tremaine Edmunds is number 6 with the Bears. And I can't wait to talk to Harrison about this. I wonder if he's going to say, actually, TJ Edwards should be better. Lavonte David is number 7. He's old, but he's still productive. Then DeMarvion Overshown checks in at number 8, ahead of Dre Greenlaw at number 9, Quincy Williams at number 10, and then 22 other linebackers in the NFL, and other guys for the Cowboys, by the way, no others, got votes beyond that. So it was a massive lack of consensus on that front. DeMarvion Overshown, by the way, ranked as high as number 4 on this list, which, hey, it's good news, right? So do you agree? Do you think DeMarvion Overshown is a top 10 linebacker? This will be the pinned comment, by the way, on today's show. So head down there and vote. Y for yes, N for no. I am a little surprised DeMarvion Overshown got so much love from the ESPN linebacker rankings. I never would have guessed he'd be at number 8. I thought maybe he would have gotten some honorable mention things. And frankly, ranking top 10 after a mere 13 games played is wild. Wildly impressive, but it is still wild. And I do think this is a great thing for the Dallas Cowboys. That is a clear sign that Overshown is a building block for this organization, that the rest of the NFL views him as a budding star. It shows how impressive he was in a pretty small sample size with the Dallas Cowboys. Now, big picture, there are some valid question marks of how can he stay healthy, if he can stay healthy, what that means for him going forward. But it also shows the talent, the upside, the ability is undeniable. I think in part the linebacker rankings in general, it's just a lack of clarity, a lack of clear-cut guys beyond Fred Warner and I guess Roquan Smith, and then it's almost rank them how you want to rank them. But to be as high as number 4, to be ranked in that top 10 in the consensus, even if there is a bit of a lack of one in general, that is a big deal for Overshown, for the Cowboys, and for that defense. Coming up next, we'll break down some of the individual quotes and praise that Overshown had. Some fun stats, at least one fun stat from ESPN as well, and just the injury updates on DeMarvion Overshown as well, because that's what I'm sure many people are still curious about. Before we get into that, this Cowboys hoodie, the call it t-shirt hoodie, the short sleeve hoodie, whatever you want to call it, was $55. Now it's just $33. I know it is quite hot, but this is a perfect fall attire, so get it now. Chatsports.com/DAL hoodie. That link will be in the comment section and the description of today's show. Will be a clickable link over there in the corner on top of that. Go get yours today. Chatsports.com/DAL hoodie. Historically speaking, when we put these on the shows, they sell pretty quickly. So if you want a specific size, you should go get yours now. All right, back to Overshown. This is what one personnel executive said on him. Quote, he's absolutely amazing. Ridiculous. Something tells me that was the guy that put him at number 4 on the rankings. One NFL defensive coach, a veteran defensive coach, didn't obviously no names, it's all anonymous, said he is, quote, one of the most athletic linebackers I have ever seen. He's the fastest guy out there. Can completely take over a game and was really starting to get it. We'll come back to that starting to get it side and what the coach means there. It's not just the time speed that shows up for Overshown, although we'll get to that in a second. It's the play speed. I've long held the belief that there are some guys that you put the pads on them and they just get way slower. And there are some guys you put the pads on them and it's like they're even faster somehow. I think that's how you identify those special athletes. That's Overshown. He is not a big guy. He was not a big guy coming in Texas. These are all his combine measurements, by the way. You know, he's 6'2" and 5'8". He was 228 pounds. He was a light guy, or 226. I can't read. But he ran a sub 4.6 40. And even the agility numbers weren't that great, but the agility testing has often been kind of lesser at the combine. But he is explosive, and he flies around the field, sometimes too much so. We'll talk about the stuff to improve on later on in today's show. But he is a rare athlete, and it is very impressive that it does show up on a pretty consistent basis. I think he's also added some weight, by the way. Now, we are aiming for 218,000 subscribers here on the Cowboys Report, so help us get there. We need 628. We're not going to get that today. We'll get that soon. Hit that sub button for me right now. This is what one NFC offensive coach had to say about Overshown. He's the second guy you worry about in Dallas after Micah. Big run and hit ability, third down speed to cover. I think whenever you're, who's the best guy after Micah, if that's how you're describing Overshown, that's a big deal. And it certainly felt like that last year when Overshown was healthy because he was consistently around the football. That is, without a doubt, some extremely high praise for Overshown, and it's positive. Now, on the not-so-positive side, one veteran NFC defensive coach, again, no names. I don't think it's the same one as was quoted earlier, but he said he can be a stud, but he has to really improve in zone coverage and when he has to disengage from a block. He can play man-to-man on any running back or tight end in the league, but zone awareness lacks. He does a great job using his athleticism to slip under blocks, but if they get his hands on him, it's a problem. I really don't disagree that much with it, and I think those are valid concerns. Look, the reality is he is undersized. He's never going to be the throwback 6'3", 250-pound thumping linebacker. You don't want him to be either. That's not who he is as a player. And he is still raw. He can show in some of the awareness, the feel for the game, and even sometimes was overrunning some plays. He was just too fast. I do think, as the one other coach mentioned previously, I do think the game was slowing down for him as the year went along. That you could see him just having a better feel for where he needed to be, for what he needed to do, which bodes well for Overshown if he wasn't coming off a notable injury, which we'll come back to. But where would you rank Overshown among all the different NFL linebackers? I don't think anyone's going to put him at 1. That should be Fred Warner. But top 10 is now very much clearly in play. After all, the NFL as a whole put him in there. So sound off for me in the comments section of today's show. Kind of tying back into the speed, I thought this was a really fun stat that ESPN mentioned. DeMarvion Overshown led all top 10 linebackers in average distance run on tackles, almost 19 yards. That is not the tackle happened 19 yards downfield, but that Overshown ran 19 yards to get to where the play was, which that's a great indication of sideline to sideline speed. He is able to flow and get to plays that most linebackers would not get to. And Overshown did so much last year for the Cowboys. He had 90 tackles in those 13 games. And not just the tackles, because I'm not a big believer in utilizing just tackles as a way to ID a player if they're good or not, because where are the tackles happening, right? 5 sacks, 8 TFLs, 4 pass breakups, picked off a pass, had a forced fumble, had a fumble recovery. He was always around the football, and he was often the first guy there. This wasn't there are some linebackers in the NFL, you can look at like the overall tackles, the solo tackles, and the assisted tackles, and it's like, okay, your assisted tackles were way high, and then you go watch, and it's like, well, he's not the first guy there, he's the second guy there, and he's helping finish off the plays, gang tackling well. Overshown is flying around making individual plays. He is consistently the first guy there if it's not Micah Parsons. I do want to discuss the injury stuff here in just a second, but let's go Madden-style rating here. What should DeMarvion Overshown be? 1 to 99, because you can't do 100, obviously, is the scale. Let me know, be honest with me, in the comment section of today's show. The top question, as it remains for DeMarvion Overshown right now, is the recovery from that knee injury. And it was a bad knee injury. It was the opposite leg he tore the first time around, but this one just had all kinds of. It was a multi-ligament tear. It was the ACL, the MCL, the PCL. It was not a good injury. It was bad. It was shredded, essentially. So I am hoping that by/around Thanksgiving, Overshown's able to make his return to the Cowboys, and he's back, and he looks like the guy we saw last year. I do still think some semblance of caution is going to be needed here. That you need to have something resembling some patience and not just assuming he is instantly back as the guy he was last year, because that was a bad knee injury. Now, look, he's a freak. He returned once already in a pretty quick time frame from the ACL tear he had back in 2023. But this one is a little bit worse, and it came later in the calendar. It's a massive knee injury. So patience will be required, but if by the end of the year, Overshown looks a little bit more like the guy we saw to end the season, that's a big deal for me. As a reminder, if you have not already done so, like the video, and let's take down the Raiders report for most likes on a video this month.